The world unfolds differently for each of us. Why? Where do the rules come from? Within each of us, there is a unique philosophy shaping our thoughts, beliefs, feelings, worldviews, and actions. This is Inner Dialogues with Ecem, an introspective space for curious souls and minds. This is where you get to understand your individual philosophy that writes the script of your life. This is where we unveil the inner wisdom that guides you. Yep, that was your inner sage knocking the door. Let's go and chat with him. Hi, it's Ecem. Welcome back to Inner Dialogues with me. Let's pick up where we left off in the last episode, shall we? We ended up with two questions. From which need this feeling arises from which need this behavior is happening from. It was almost reverse engineering. The whole episode was reverse engineering. What we discussed in the whole episode was actually the answer of these questions. We talked about our need to seek clarity and certainty in life, how we use the survival need to cope with the unknown, and how we incubate to quote-unquote feel ready to take action. I want to unpack these topics a bit more. I want to get a bit more specific about them and work with these two questions more. What is the need behind our feelings and actions? What needs are causing them to appear? 2 weeks ago, I created this video about joy. Why I'm laughing, it's basically because it was such a challenge to post that video and it ended up not being posted. But the video was about how I was feeling joyful in general, recently at least. I'm not saying happy or uplifted though. I'm saying joyful because it wasn't happiness. It was joy that was all around my being. I was in touch with this pure inner joy I have. I was getting tears from witnessing life because it was creating a sense of joy in me. If you have listened to I think it was 2 episodes before, second season episode 2, where I talked about this feeling of home, and I referred to this movie, We Live in Time, that I watched at that moment by Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh, and how it made me emotional because I was just witnessing life, and that created a sense of joy within me. But anyway, that was that time where I was filled with joy, and I created a video for it, but I couldn't post that video. I tried a bunch of times, but for some reason, when I posted it, there was some sound issue, so I stopped forcing it and set it aside. Then a couple of days ago, I witnessed the words of someone. I'm enrolled in a year-long... the sun came up now. Wonderful. Anyway, I'm enrolled in a year-long course for Jirang Qigong, and we meet regularly on Zoom. And one of the people there shared their struggles when they first started Qigong practices. That thing she shared there made me see myself on the mirror of my own judgments. Something happened in the last 2 weeks where I was away from that sense of joy, but I wasn't sure what it was. In that moment when she shared about her experience, I realized that it was my judgments that were getting in the way. My judgment towards myself, others, the world, the systems was creating a sense of stiffness, was creating a stiff wall within me. I'd even say between me and my core essence. Because of that judgment, I wasn't able to tap into my inner joy. Inner joy is one of the default mode of our core essence, of our inner sage. But when we build the walls of ego, judgment, and beliefs around it, joy becomes unreachable for us. This experience of realizing my judgments being in the way of my joy made me ask, why do I have judgments in the first place then? What was the need behind them? What was that need that encouraged me to create and hold on to judgments? Spoiler alert, it was very much due to the unknown again. One of the tricky things about judgment is missing the mirroring part. I judge people. I hardly and silently, which is a very sneaky way of judging people, I hardly judge people. I hardly and harshly judge myself. I caught myself a lot in doing that. And every time I catch myself with my judgments, I find the root of that judgment in me. I'm actually judging myself on that topic, and therefore I judge others. We talked about this concept of mirroring and everything being a reflection of what we hold within ourselves. When I started to do my coaching business full time, I wanted to come up on social media, create an account, and start posting there. It wasn't that easy. And the difficult part didn't come from not being able to decide or manage, or not knowing how to manage my way of with editing, posting, all that stuff. It was way deeper than that. I was afraid to put myself out there in social media. I've never been someone who shared much about her life on socials. I barely use my own personal account. But why? Because I was judging people based on how they appear on social media. I was categorizing them based on those judgments. And the reason I wasn't able to post on social media for my own business was because I was afraid of being judged. Why? Because I was judging people. I had to do a lot of inner work, self-discovery, and none of them has finished or is ever going to finish. But I focused a lot on my judgmental side with my coach in order to have a flourishing and sustainable business. Look at that. In order to have a thriving and fruitful business, I had to work with the perception I have about myself. That's the beauty of coaching. It encourages you to do the inner work as you work toward a goal. Months ago, I reread this trilogy called The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. I quoted it and mentioned it here at that time as well. There was this part from the final book of the trilogy. When I reread that, I immediately took note of it. It goes, quote, "I think you reminded me more of myself than I wish to admit, and therefore I judged you with the same harshness I would have judged myself." End quote. Most of the time, we don't want to face with the sides of ourselves with which we are not comfortable of having them. And in those times, we see them in others and we judge them silently, loudly, with our words or with our actions. I judged my dad, who was cutting me off when he used to be angry about stuff. I judged him when he was being passive-aggressive about situations or a conversation we had earlier. I was irritated by these people around me who were a bit full of themselves, a bit egoistic. I was impatient with my grandma because she was forgetting stuff. I was impatient with my mom because she didn't give her full attention and presence to me when I was telling things to her. I was judging all these people, getting irritated and angry over their behaviors because I didn't want to have those behaviors. I was judgmental towards them because they reminded me more of myself than I wished to admit. I judged them with the same harshness I would have judged myself. Then what is the way out? The way out is realizing the mirror, as most of the time it is the case. One of the big breaking points in coaching sessions with my clients is putting the mirror in front of them. What is it about that people which reminds you a part of yourself? What is it about that situation which is hard to face with in yourself? Once we realize the root of our judgments, it paves the way to acceptance. It paves the way to flow with life. Judgment is like trying to swim in the same river twice. You cannot step into the same river twice, says Heraclitus. And I think that's what we are trying to do when we hold on to our judgments and conclusions. We use them as our life belts in this ever-changing and full of unknown life. Life belts do save us from drowning. They help us to float, not to swim though. If we want to swim, there has to be a level of surrendering to the flow of the water. And that is something we cannot do with our life belts on. We cannot flow within the unknown of life if we were to cling onto our judgments, beliefs, worldviews, and opinions. To some degree, the conclusions we reach through our education, life experiences, and the worldviews we formed for ourselves are needed. They are needed until we learn to swim in the unknown, to swim in the river of life. Judgment is like trying to swim in the same river twice because when we hold on to our judgments, we want to control the flow of life. I have to feel ready to start posting on social media about my business. And readiness means that I have to have a good microphone. I have to have my brand colors, fonts, and styles picked out. I have to know perfectly how to edit. That is a judgment. That is a narrative that we have in our minds that is trying to control the endless possible outcomes and ways in which I can start posting on social media. Or saying to someone, I know you like to do X, but that's not how the world runs. You cannot earn your life from there. So they're saying that the river that I jumped in will be the same river for you too. I jumped in that river, tried to swim with my passions, but I couldn't succeed because I was probably not trusting enough to myself. So it will be the same for you. Because you can jump in the same river twice. Well, I have some good news for us. This might be something you'll never heard of. No, I'm kidding. It's very intuitive. It's an intuitive truth. Thankfully, by the very nature of the river, the water is constantly changing 1 second to another. And saying that, due to what I believe, due to what I think, what I experienced, I'll experience this and that, is flowing against the nature of river, the river of life. I was doing a guided meditation practice on this meditation app called Open, and the name of the meditation was No Judgment. I loved how they started the meditation. I'm going to quote instructor's words. Quote, in a world full of unknowns, the urge to judge can feel like a way to make sense of things. Judgment provides an illusion of control. But this habit often creates mental barriers, limiting our ability to see clearly and connect authentically. End quote. In order to put this whole unknown life into a framework, we have our opinions, judgments, beliefs, worldviews. We cannot look directly into the sun, so we use sunglasses. We cannot look directly into the eyes of the unknown. That's why we have our opinions, beliefs, and judgments. The sunglasses we wear are our perceptions. The blind spot of these sunglasses, of our judgments and opinions, is our tendency to hold on to them. We use them as anchors in our understanding and in the ways of we live life. We are holding on to them because we want to control the unknown of life. If you listen to the previous episode, I talked about my incubation to getting prepared for the very first community-only group coaching I hosted last week. I was excessively planning the session. I was incubating. Why? Because I wanted to control the outcome. I wanted people to get something out from the call. I wanted the call to be a collective coaching experience. I cannot control the outcome, so I controlled the way going to the outcome. I cannot control the outcome because there are zillions of possibilities that can happen and zillions of factors affecting the outcome. I don't have control over them, so I heavily controlled the things I can control. Which is how it should be, right? I cannot change people's minds, so focus on the things you can change. But this is not about only change and controlling what you can control. This is more about not being able to sit with the unknown, sit with its discomfort, sit with your own fears and flow with the change of the current. In the later parts of the meditation, the instructor introduced us to an ancient Greek practice called Ep.4. It was a principle used heavily by skeptics of the ancient Greek academy. It basically means suspension of judgment. Ep.4 invites you to withhold immediate conclusions, instead embrace uncertainty. As the instructor was saying in the meditation, quote, suspending judgments fosters a more open awareness, allowing you to engage with your experiences more directly and cultivate a more flexible and adaptable mind. End quote. Ep.4, suspension of judgment, allows us to be flexible because we stay away from reaching a solid conclusion. We talked about our mind's tendency to hold on to binaries, opposites previously. It is survival for our mind to structure the world on clear-cut ways, conclusions, and categorizations. But it is survival for our human intelligence to be aware of the world beyond the binary mind and embrace the middle ground. It was episode 18 where we dove deeper about the binary mind, and there I quoted Scott Fitzgerald's words. He said, quote, the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. One should, for example, be able to see that things are hopeless, yet to be determined to make them otherwise. End quote. It is our ability to hold and work with opposite views, and that determines our flexibility and ability to flow with life. Being aware of our judgments and instead of let them guide the way, we can accept them and move with them. And in time, they will loosen up and vanish at the end. The ability to hold the space for several opposites without clinging onto any conclusion or judgments brings us the full experience of living, the one that is free, joyful, spacious, and in flow. Judgment creates a stiffness in our being. It moves us away from being flexible with life. This reminds me of Lao Tzu's words. The chapter 76 of Tao Te Ching, which is a foundational work of Taoism, is called the soft and flexible. There, Lao Tzu says, quote, "When first born, we are small and weak. The living are soft and flexible. When we die, we become hard and stiff. The dead are rigid, unmoving. The greenery, grasses, plants, and trees growing are tender and supple. Dead are dry and brittle. And so the strong and hard go along with dying, the open to change and flexible with living. When an army becomes inflexible, it suffers the defeat. A tree that won't bend easily breaks in storms. The hard and strong will fail, the open-hearted prevail." End quote. As living beings, we have to stay flexible. Stiffness is a companion of death. Flexibility is a companion of life. Our judgments, conclusions, beliefs, opinions hold us stiff. There is no way to control life with them. Life is not controllable. It is not something to grasp or control. It is something to flow with, to move through. Reaching a conclusion is appealing. Ending a causal chain is appealing. Because of that, this happened. Because this happened, this may happen. Ooh, wonderful for our minds who are seeking certainty to thrive. But that's not how it works. Reaching to conclusions and holding on to judgments are appealing because it's basically reaching the end of the unknown zone. But life is lived in the unknown zone. I was reading a commentary on Lao Tzu's philosophy, and his following words were quoted there. I couldn't find the English translation, so I translated it. I'll put the details for the commentary in the description anyway. Quote, "Decision is the state of stopping the mind. Once you decide, the mind stops thinking, so as development. However, the mind always forces the person to make a decision to reach a conclusion because being in state of development is dangerous and it makes the person restless." End quote. If I were to stop preparing for that upcoming group coaching session, I'd be restless because, as I said in the previous episode, I'd be sitting with the unknown, which is the state of development and further possibilities. So I wanted to plan out and finalize it with a decision so that it won't stay as an open tab in my mind. What is that I'm trying to control? What part of that middle ground, aka the unknown, makes me restless and uncomfortable to sit with? Which judgments I have about my future, aka my expectations, is blocking me to take action? Which judgments I have is causing me to incubate? Those questions can be our guides and anchors in those moments where we are full with our judgments and where we are away from our joy, which is the default way of functioning of our being. If you want to take a step further in understanding the root of your judgments, control mechanisms, and taking steps for your goals and dreams, I'll be holding an open to everyone free group coaching session on November the 14th. We'll take a deep look into our own need and intentions behind our coping mechanism with the unknown. How do we use incubation as a way to deal with the unknown, and as a consequence, we delay action in our lives? You are more than welcome to the call. It will be a collective and a very powerful experience for all of us. You can find all the details in the description. Until then, reach out to me on Instagram DMs or via email. Let's chat. Truly, I really, really love connecting with you. As our conversation for today fades away, may you find your echoes of it that resonate within you. Thanks for listening today. This is Inner Dialogues with Ecem, a place where you discover your inner you, a place where you belong. Take care.